Hi everyone. Today we're going to continue to talk about how organisms interact in nature. The next type of interaction we're going to be talking about is competition. And competition is when two organisms are competing for the same resource that's in limited supply. Competition is unique among interactions because this is the only interaction where both species are actually harmed because they're kind of like fighting over this thing that they don't have enough of in nature. Now, when we talk about an organism's niche, we're talking about its role in the ecosystem, right? It's not only where the organism lives, right, but what it does in that particular location. Now, in ecology, there's a rule that says that no two organisms can occupy the exact same niche at the exact same time. So imagine this, right? So my niche is normally to teach biology in room C16. Now, if another organism, like another teacher, came in and tried to do my exact same job in the exact same location, we'd be in direct competition for every single resource, right? We'd be competing for your attention, we'll be competing for the computer, we'd be competing for, chalk and board space. Every resource will be in direct competition because we're trying to do the exact same thing at the exact same location. So when this happens, there's two possible outcomes. One is called competitive exclusion that we see here. The more fit organism, the one that's the better competitor, obviously me in this situation where I'm competing with another bio teacher, is going to win the competition. The second organism that loses the competition because it can't compete for any resources, that organism would die out. And that's what we see here. The other possible outcome is that if two organisms are equally matched in competition, we see something called resource partitioning, which is basically sharing. Right? I would say to the other bio teacher, okay, I'll teach the students from this side of the room, you teach the students on that side of the room. Right? So we split up the resources that we have in nature. And that's what we see here. Right? So this diagram shows that we have two microorganisms called Paramecium, a purple one and a green one. When they're separated, they both thrive in their separate test tubes. When you mix them together, with competitive exclusion, the better competitor, which is the purple bacteria or purple paramecium, take over. If they were equally matched, you'd have resource partitioning, where the purple end up occupying the bottom half of the test tube, and the green paramecium occupy the top half of the test tube. Now, there was one more interaction I want to talk about, and that is a predator-prey interaction. So predation is defined as the consumption of one organism, which we call the prey, by a second organism, which we call the predator. So, in this interaction, one organism is benefiting while the other is harmed. Right? The predator is obviously the one that benefits because it gets a meal, and the prey is harmed because it gets eaten. But that's the same definition that we had for parasitism, which is a type of symbiosis. So the question here says, how is predation different than symbiosis? But remember, in symbiosis, the organisms have to live together for an extended period of time. So the parasite lives with its host. The predator doesn't live with its prey, it just kills it. And that's how predation is different than symbiosis. You see, a good parasite doesn't want to kill its host because the parasite knows that if the host dies, the parasite usually dies as well. Now here we see a graph that shows the population of a predator lion and its prey gazelle. Right? And this is very, very standard of a predator-prey relationship, where as the prey goes up, right? So here we have more and more gazelle. Well, that's more lion food. So after the gazelle population increases, the lion population would follow with an increase. Right? But here, once the lion population gets to its highest point, we see that the gazelle population is falling, and that's because all the lions are eating the gazelles. Right? So down here, right, we have lots of lions but very, very few gazelles, which means that the lions are going to be starving to death. And that's why we see this decrease in the lion population here. But now there's less lions, so the gazelles are free to reproduce, and their population goes up and up and up and up. Right? So it's always this rising and falling of both predator and prey relationships. This last table is just a summary of all of the interactions that we talked about so far. Like I said, competition harms both species involved. Right? In predation, the predator's benefited and the prey is harmed because it's eaten. Right? And then last week we talked about our 3 types of symbiotic relationships. In mutualism, both organisms benefited. Commensalism, one organism benefits while the other is not affected. And then finally, parasitism, one organism benefits, that's the parasite, while its host is harmed. Alright guys, that's it for today's lesson.